Good morning, children. Today we are going to do the story Old Man at the Bridge, which is written by Ernest Hemingway. So let us do about the author. Ernest Hemingway, who's the author, was an American novelist, short story writer and a journalist. Now about the story is based on a true incident that Hemingway witnessed as a reporter during the Spanish Civil War. So, this incident is about the Spanish Civil War, where Ernest Hemingway was working as a reporter. The story emphasizes upon the reality that it is the common people who have to suffer the most in spite of the fact that they are innocent. So, in this story, the emphasis is laid upon the point that in reality it is the common people who suffer the most during the any kind of battle or a war. So, Old Man at the Bridge demonstrates the power of narrative art. He takes a small ordinary detail in a situation and through the art of storytelling transforms it into a powerful story about the tragedy of war. The old man becomes a symbol of the countless civilian victims of war who are without politics. Now, over here, through his power of narrative art, he tells in a beautiful manner, he narrates a simple incident, and through this, he tells us about the tragedy of war. The old man, he becomes a symbol of the large number of innocent civilians who have nothing to do with politics, who do not have any political views. That means they are not on the side of any political party. They are just going on with their lives in a simple manner, just working on their daily requirements and working for it. So now let us do the story in brief, that is the summary. The narrator, soldier, and the old man sitting by the side of the road. So in the beginning we see that the narrator, soldier, and an old man are there, and the old man is sitting by the side of the road. He has left his home and walked this far but was too tired to go any further. So this is the old man who's very tired and he's not able to walk any further. He kept on worrying about his animals. The soldier reassured him and tried to persuade him to move away from the spot. So the soldier was trying to reassure the old man and telling him not to worry about his animals and he should move a little away from the spot because the enemies would arrive there any moment and the battle would begin. The old man could not walk any further, but the old man is too tired to walk any further. The soldier understood that ultimately the old man, who was in no way connected to the war, would not survive. So it became very clear to the soldier that the old man, who was not at all connected to the battle in any way, he is going to die in the end. He would become a casualty of war. Being an innocent civilian, he would die in the end. He tries his best to convince him to move from there, but he is not able to. So now let us begin with the story Old Man at the Bridge. Old Man at the Bridge by Ernest Hemingway. So we begin with the first paragraph. An old man with steel rimmed spectacles and very dusty clothes sat by the side of the road. So in the beginning of the story we are told that an old man, he is wearing the spectacles which have a frame made up of steel. His clothes are very dirty, full of dust, and he is sitting by the side of the road. There was a pontoon bridge across the river. Now what is a pontoon bridge? It is a temporary floating bridge. So he's sitting on the side. There was a pontoon bridge across the river and carts, trucks and men, women and children were crossing it. So there was a pontoon bridge across the river, carts, all the vehicles, men, women, children, all were crossing that bridge. The mule-drawn carts staggered up the steep bank from the bridge with soldiers helping push against the spokes of the wheels. So the mule drawn carts, the carts that are drawn by the mules, they staggered up the steep bank. Staggered means to move unsteadily with a lot of effort being put into it. So they had to move after crossing the pontoon bridge. The carts and the other vehicles, they had to move up the steep bank, which was highly inclined from the bridge. So it was with great difficulty that those carts were moving on to that steep bridge, and the soldiers, they were helping to push those carts by applying force on the spokes of the wheels. The trucks ground up and away, heading out of it all, and the peasants plodded along in the ankle deep dirt. So the trucks ground up, that means that whole area was full of soft mud. So in the soft mud, the tires of the trucks, they sunk in, so they had to, the drivers had to steer up the truck, and with great difficulty the trucks would move from there out of the mud. And the same way the peasants, that is the farmers, they were also plodding along in ankle deep dust, because as I said, there was soft mud over there. So they moved slowly with heavy steps, that is plodded, to move slowly with heavy steps, and the dust was ankle deep. But the old man sat there without moving. He was too tired to go any further. But the old man was sitting over there. He did not move even a little bit, because he was very, very tired. It was my business to cross the bridge, explore the bridgehead beyond, and find out to what point the enemy had advanced. As I said, the narrator, he is a soldier, and it was his duty that he had to cross the bridge and explore, look at beyond the bridgehead. Now, bridgehead is an area which is in control of this particular army. It is in their control, and he had to look beyond that point and find out to what point the enemy had already come. I did this and returned over the bridge. There were not so many carts now and very few people on foot, but the old man was still sitting there. So he did this, he went to the bridgehead and looked beyond it, and then he returned over to the bridge. By now he noticed that very few carts were left, and very few people, they were walking on foot. So most of them had already crossed the pontoon bridge and they were on the other side. But the old man was still sitting there. He did not move. "Where do you come from?" I asked him. So the soldier, that is the narrator, asked the old man from where he comes. "From San Carlos," he said and smiled. So the old man replied to him that I come from San Carlos, and when he said this, there was a smile on his face. Why was there a smile? That was his native town, and so it gave him a pleasure to mention it, and he smiled. So why did he smile when he said that I am from San Carlos? Because San Carlos was his native town. He was born and brought up there, and it always gives us happiness when we talk about a native city or a native town. So he smiled. "I was taking care of animals," he explained. "Oh," I said, not quite understanding. So the old man, without being asked, he continues to tell the narrator that I was there in San Carlos taking care of my animals. So the narrator does not understand. He just says, "Oh." "Yes," he said. He continues, "I stayed, you see, taking care of animals. I was the last one to leave the town of San Carlos." He adds on that I continued to stay over there taking care of my animals, and I did not want to move from there, and I was the last one to leave the town of San Carlos. He did not look like a shepherd nor a herdsman, and I looked at his black dusty clothes and his grey dusty face and his steel rimmed spectacles and said, what animals were they? So the narrator continues to look at the old man very carefully and just wonder that he does not look like a shepherd or a herdsman who takes his sheep and goats outside but for grazing. And then he looked carefully at his black dusty clothes. His clothes were full of dust, and his face was also grey, full of dust, and his spectacles, they were with a steel with a steel frame. And then finally he asked him, what animals were there? So he continues to say, various animals, he said, and shook his head. I had to leave them. So he says, I was taking care of various animals. And when he's thinking of those animals, he said, he shook his head because he was really missing them. He was feeling very bad for them, and he says, I had to leave them. I was watching the bridge and the African looking country of the Ebro Delta and wondering how long it would be before we would see the enemy. So what is this African looking country over here mean? That means that the area around the Ebro Delta was very green. It was full of vegetation and very dense vegetation. So it gave a sense of wilderness, a sense of wild, just like Africa. And he was looking at that, and he was wondering that how long would it be before they would see their enemy, and listening all the while for the first noises that would signal that ever mysterious event called contact. And the old man still sat there, and he was over there just watching, looking out for the enemy, and his ears were very alert, trying to listen all the while for the first noises that would announce the arrival of the enemy. Because when the enemy soldiers would come nearby, there would be some noise which would indicate that they have arrived, and that would be the moment of called contact. But the old man continued sitting there. So I end this video over here. I will continue the explanation of the rest of the story in the next video. Thank you.